Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Yeah, I can't wait. So I finished Seraph the End, the season. It was great. As I'm recording this, episode 22 has come out on YouTube and episode 23 on Patreon. Those were great episodes. And so as soon as I finished episode 23, I instantly had to watch episode 24. And I was like, wait, what? That's where we're leaving off at. And then I was out of town for the weekend on vacation. And I came back and I've been home a day and I was like, I want to dive into the manga. So I had up until episode 24, I'd read up until chapter 37 and I stopped because it seemed like the manga, which makes sense, right? The manga was starting to deviate a little bit from the anime because the anime seems like it ends at like an odd place, which in hindsight, it doesn't. But there's still a lot more that they haven't told us yet. So funny that. So I started reading after episode 24, reading chapters 38. I read 38, 39, 40, and 41. And then I stopped because things were starting to divert a little bit. But I had a couple things. In episode 24 and 23, I talked a lot about the manga and things leading up to chapter 37. So really, this video is going to seem kind of odd, but it's mainly just, I'm going to catch you up with where I am at with the manga. And we're going to finish volume 11 and do volume 12 today. And that's where we're going to start on the manga. Because the anime kind of leaves off halfway through volume 11. And that's where the anime season leaves. And so I'm like, okay. But reading chapters 38, 39, 40, and 41, as many of you probably noted in episode 22, there's a pretty big connotation of you and Mika being together. Especially, I love in the manga the car ride to the airport that we get with you and Mika. Mika blushing, obviously, when you's like, oh, well, now if you ever need some blood, just come get me and you'll be fine. And it's like, yeah, sure. Really good stuff there. We get some names. We get the Abaddon, which is the demon of destruction, is named in the anime. And then the second king is the king of salt, which is the second trumpet is the king of salt, which is what you is. Don't have an official name yet. But chapter 38, everybody knows that Corretto's not a good guy. Like, everybody in chapter 38 of the manga, everybody's like, oh, this is Corretto's plan, not Guren's. Oh, everybody's like, oh, well, Corretto. I like that Narumi says Corretto hangs his allies out to dry because he's a Hiragi. And Shinoa's just over here like, yeah, no, can't help it. My family's kind of sketch. But we get the idea that the Hiragis are not known for their loyalty, especially even towards their own family, which this whole series has had the theme of family and loyalty. So it makes sense that the Hiragis are ones that are complete antithesis of that. With the exception of Shinoa. Shinoa has learned the value of the Nakama, so she's an exception. She's the black sheep of the family. And then Goshi is the one that actually notes about the Hiragi family not being good with others. It's like, okay, that makes... The Maharu is making more sense now that Guren's former girlfriend, would-be lover, was actually engaged to Shinya, and then that fell apart. Maharu, she's not great. So that's interesting. And so then we have the name Naminari is thrown out in the manga. Naminaris are apparently when you have a demon, you're halfway over converting into a demon, and Guren is in that Naminari state. So he's almost being taken over by his demon. But the manga chapter 41 ended the same way, where we see Shinya getting attacked by Guren, and we don't know what happened to Shinya. So that's been left up to debate. So we got to figure that out. Okay. And so it makes sense now, too, that Guren is more like you. Guren is the more, like, idealistic, Nakama-fueled, like, let's save our friends. And Maharu is the perfectionist. That's the scientist that doesn't want anything to do with anybody. Makes more sense. And that side of her is taking Guren over. Makes sense. The confrontation, I have to say, the confrontation with Guren and the whole thing leading up to episode 24, I kind of like it better in the anime. I think it's better choreographed. I think that they were able to animate it and do more with the visuals in the anime than the manga. But the manga is still pretty good. Mika, we find out, Mika has seen other experiments. Apparently, Mika says in the manga that he went overseas to Europe and he witnessed this, like, it looked like it had its arms had become wings, and it was like a half angel, and it was telling Mika to kill him, that he was in pain. And so, of course, Mika seeing that, he's like, oh shit, I don't want you to become this. So that furthers why he's not only wary of humans because they've been experimenting on the Seraph of the End, but also because he's like, I don't want you to end up in the same boat where he wants me to kill him. He's like, I don't want that to happen. So it gives more insight into Mika's character and where his headspace is. But also in the manga, Mika does agree that if they make it through everything, they will go back and rescue Guren, because Guren's important to you. Mika's like, fine, we'll go back and rescue him. So that makes sense at the end of the anime, why they're all going back to Guren, and Mika's like, fine, whatever. But we're not there in the manga yet. In the manga, I'll talk about that in a second, we're not there yet. The anime kind of nice. The anime gives a nice little bow to it, and it's like, okay, here you go, wrap up, maybe we'll do a season 2. But the manga is not that way, right? The manga does not end that way. Maharu says that she won't let Guren come back. So, that he's... Okay, she says he won't let him come back because in the middle of the battle of episode 24, when Guren is crying, when Yu is like, Guren, these are your friends you're attacking, and Guren is, like, crying, that was actually Guren trying to, like, break through in the moment. And in the manga, we get Maharu, the demon, saying, no, Guren. She says, if you break through now and come back, you'll be scarred for life, and you'll be traumatized by what you will have seen and what you have done. So she's like, I'm not letting you come back. So that's interesting, that the demon doesn't want Guren to be traumatized by what he's done if he comes back in the moment. I'm like, that's terrifying. Okay. So there's that. We also find out that you have to do all these sacrifices to control the Seraph of the End. In order to control the god of destruction, the angel of destruction, they have to sacrifice all these people, and they use the blood like as a sacrifice to control it. Glad Credo knows this. Fun times. And then basically everything kind of runs the mill of the anime up until the very end. And in the end of the anime, we see like you coming out of the shack with Mika and then being like, let's go rescue Guren. In the manga, in chapter 41, at the very end, Mika's like, hey, I'm gonna go check on you. Mika goes in the shack, and we see this. We see that Yu is not out of his demon state yet, that he's chained up, and he's still in the demon is still controlling him. So that's where chapter 41 leaves off at. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't want to read any more because it seems like the manga at this point in chapter 42 is going to diverge a little bit from where the anime ended off at. And I'm like, okay, I want to react to the end of volume 11, and then we're going to read volume 12, which is, volume 12 is chapters 44 through 47. I've wrote it out here. So we're going to be reading today chapters 42 and 43 of volume 11, and then chapters 44, 45, 46, and 47 of volume 12. And we'll see how long that takes. That's what I've got planned out for today. If it doesn't take us that long to get through all the chapters and talk about it, I may end up doing 2 volumes a week instead of just 1, if that's the case. It's not that I want to catch up, but I want to catch up. But I also want to read like with what I'm able to, because I know some of these chapters are pretty long. They've kind of ranged. So we're going to read up until through volume 12 today and just see what ends up happening, and then seeing how long that takes. And if it didn't take us too long to get through and discuss, then I might do 13 and 14 next week. We'll see. But I don't think I'll do more than 2 volumes. We'll see what this week looks like, and by the end of it, talk about maybe doing 1 or 2 volumes. We'll just see how long it takes us. But I'm really, really excited to get into this manga, especially knowing that it's going a different direction than the anime ended off at. I'm sure that it'll get us back to that point, but I poured myself some tea. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to read. So let's not waste any more time. And I've got a Viz subscription, so I'm reading through Viz. If you have Viz, they do it chapter by chapter. The only thing I did was I went to Wikipedia and I didn't read anything. I was just like, give me the volume breakdowns and just tell me what chapters correspond with what volume. That's all I looked up. So I'm not even looking up volume covers until I do the thumbnail. So that's where I'm at. But we are going to start and just see what ends up happening. All right. So we're going to start chapters 42 and 43 of volume 11 and volume 12 of Seraph of the End. And we're going to read that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Where do we even start? Oh my God, this went a very, very different direction than how the anime ended. Oh my gosh, I could just picture the comments for episode 24 now, because at the end of episode 24, I was like, oh, where they're going back to the demon army to rescue Guren, and I could just see all the manga readers right now being like, that's not happening. I'm like, oh, what? We just went through like a whole bunch of revelations, no pun intended, like in the span of like this 1.5 volumes. Now that I think about it, I actually think I think I'm going to read 2 volumes per reaction. I think I'm going to read 2 volumes, not just to catch up, but because there's so much happening, and I feel like I'm like, and they're getting into Guren's backstory, so they're going to touch base on the stuff that the novel talked about in the next set of volumes. So I'm like, okay, oh my God, what? There's just so many things that they just popped out in this volume. I'm like, I'm probably going to have to read 2 volumes. Probably have to read 2 volumes because I think I'm going to have to. There's just so much going on. And I mean, honestly, 2 volumes. This one was 44, 45, 46, 47. There's like 4 chapters per volume, maybe. Although there were 5 in this last one, in volume 11. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to just do 8 chapters per thing and just do... wow. I am kind of floored by everything that was revealed in these chapters. So we need to walk through this. I've read through the volume and everything, so I'm going through it. So we have Erd Gales. I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name wrong, or Giles, or whatever. So we have not met the first progenitor. I have not met the original vampire, but this guy's like right up there. He's like the next one, right? So he's been there a while. He's one of the older. Because if Ferid is at least 800 years old, or that's when him and Crowley met. So Crowley's 800 years old. Ferid's older than that. I think they said 1300 years old, and he was the 7th, and there's no telling. And apparently Leskar and Cruel were both made progenitors around the same time, which explains why they don't get along with one another. Explains many things. Okay, so Leskar and Cruel Tepes. Yep. So Les was in charge of Germany. So all these vampires have taken different locations, and Erd has been in charge of Russia. Okay. And so Ferid, what the hell? I can't be, here's the thing. I don't like Ferid. It's funny. I don't like Ferid. He's not like one of my favorite characters, but I can't hate him. He's so freaking eccentric. And I love when Mika's like, no, he's not only dangerous because he's a strong vampire, he's eccentric. I can't hate Ferid because I'm like, he's just so like enthusiastic and charismatic about everything, even when you know it's kind of a front. Oh my God. So basically, he wanted to get Cruel out of the way so he could take over. But there's so much more to Ferid. Like, I'm like, is he just done with being immortal? Because he talks about being bored a lot in these chapters. Is he just done with being immortal? So he's like, screw it. I'm just going to mess around and screw everything up because I don't care anymore. Like, is that it? I'm so amazed. I'm just baffled by how much. So Guren is following along with Credo because he really doesn't have a choice at this point. Or maybe it's just his firm form of karma. Like, he's accepted his fate because... So we find out a lot in this set of chapters. Like, a lot of stuff going on. Holy crap. Okay. So Credo, so they're still using Mirai. They're still using Kimazuki's sister as a Seraph of the End to take over the Vampire City. So they're still using her. That's still a thing. That hasn't stopped. Unlike the anime, that hasn't stopped. She's still being used. And Yu is still got, so the demon, so Yu is in the same boat as Guren, where his demon is slowly taking over more and more each day. He's up to like 3 hours now, being stuck in demon form. That's not good. And Ferid has introduced this unstable experimental drug to keep everything at bay. Oh my God, it's crazy. We'll talk about the demon form of him. But Mika's still struggling to be like, okay, I don't trust any of you. But he wants to keep you safe. And so by the end of all this discussion, I like that we have the whole thing where they all donated their blood to give to Mika. And he's been going on 3 days. And so like, oh, you need to take it. I like that they all donated a little bit to give to him. It's really sweet. And him just being, and I like that he's also like, it's gross. It's not used blood. Right? Oh God. And so it just shows, I like that, you know, the anime where it leaves off at, the anime makes everything seem like, well, we're out in the middle of the sticks, but things aren't that bad. And these chapters like, no. Mika's like depending on the blood of all of the others because Yu's too weak to take his blood. He doesn't want to like risk him turning into a demon again. The people there are eating like canned foods and they're having to forage for stuff because it's the apocalypse. Like, things aren't great. Like, they're foraging around and they still have to, in the midst of all this, fight these 4 horsemen of John that have sprung up because there's nothing else to do. So things are pretty dire. Like, this series does not shy away from being like, yeah, this is a bad scenario, right? And so then I do love the fact that Shanoa like got mitzvah to admit she's a virgin because they're like, oh, it's our virgin blood. Like, it's great. But yeah, so in the midst of all this, they recap what we've known from the start with all this, and they decide that going back to the demon army is a bad idea. Mika doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to take you back to the humans. They've deflected, and they've established that the demon army is going to kill him if they, for running off, for being traitors. They're going to kill him for insubordination. So they're like, we really don't know what to do. And then Mika's like, well, what if we go and get Cruel? She knows what's going on. Maybe we could go find some stuff out from her. And it looks like they don't have to do that. I'm just amazed they were considering going to the vampires first. That floored me from the start. But then that's not even necessary because then we touch base on Ferid and Crowley in this sports car showing up to be like, let's go become besties with them all. I'm just amazed. And so we do establish that Ferid kind of forced Crowley to become his friend. He's like, well, I mean, I killed your friends and then we became buddies. And it's like, God. So Ferid's been around for 1,300 years and Crowley has been his buddy for 800 years, but he killed all of Crowley's friends, I guess, before turning him. So is it maybe suspected that Ferid did turn Crowley? Okay, that explains why Crowley's like, I don't trust you. It felt like Interview with a Vampire. It felt very much like, it felt just like Interview with a Vampire where Ferid is like basically Lestat. Ferid is like Tom Cruise as Lestat from the movie and Crowley's like Christian Slater. It's like, that's the vibes that I got. I'm kind of all about it. I was like, okay, cool. But he's like, we're going to become new best friends. I like that we get this thing on Seishiro. He's the one Hiragi that gets overshadowed. But so, holy shit, so much happens in these chapters. And so the chapters vary a lot in length. Like some of the chapters are 50 pages long and some are like 26 pages. Like the chapters they vary so wildly in length. But I still think I might try to I'm going to at least see how long it takes me to get through volume 13 and see if I'm going to do volume 13 and 14. I'm at least going to do 1 or 2 volumes a video. If they're short chapters, I'll do 2 volumes. If they're long chapters, like some of these volumes, like volume 12, there were some long chapters, like 50 to 60 page chapters. Whereas the end of volume 11, there was like a 26 page chapter in there. So it'll depend, but I'm at least going to do 1 volume, and if the chapters are short, I might do 2. We'll see what that all looks like, because it took me about an hour to get through the reaction for this one. Oh my gosh. But yeah, Crowley. I like Crowley's character a lot in this because Crowley's so like nonchalant. He's just like, He's like, I have nothing else to do, so I'm guessing I'm going to go along with this. And he left Chess and Horn back wherever, and it's just him and Ferid. He left Chess and Horn, so that shows that he doesn't quite trust Chess and Horn. It should have made sense that there could be 2 progenitors with the same number because both Cruel and Lest are number 3, but both Chess and Horn are like number 17, so that makes sense. But man, I'm kind of amazed at originally you kind of realizes who Ferid is, and his memory's really spotty going back and forth between being a demon and a human. His memory's super spotty, which is concerning, but he also can still hear and has like, some inhuman strength, and Mika's like, crap, even though you're not a demon, you're turning more and more because it's merging. The merging is happening, and that freaks me out. I'm like, I don't want you to become a demon, but we'll talk about that. But that whole thing, and Mika's like, crap, what's the point of all this if you lose your humanity? And he's like, well, you're not human either. He's like, that makes us the same. And Mika's like, I can't deal with you. I just love it. I love that Mika's like, I love you, but damn it, you're getting on my nerves. So yeah, and then Ferid with the sports car, this mangaka, I know the mangaka and the artist and the author are 2 different people. Someone draws the comics and someone writes the story, but man, the mangaka loves to draw that car. It's just the double spread with the car is amazing. I love it. And just the action and all of this. So Mika and you come to the conclusion that, yeah, this whole thing with the Seraph of the End thing was way before Ferid even killed the rest of the family. Like, it's been going on for a while. Like, this is beyond just when it started for them. And Mika and you come to the conclusion that Credo is not exactly totally onto it because he's still trying to find information too. So it's probably Ferid, and you doesn't want to suspect Guren, but I'm like, honey, Guren's like at the center of all this. Ugh. Oh my God. Yeah. Blah. So yeah, all of this nonsense happening and all of us being friends and Mika being like, you and your friendship. So yeah, but we just go through with Crowley fighting them, and oh my god. We cut back, in the midst of the battle, we cut back to Shinjuku. Now the question is, does Aoi know that Shinya has been revived, along with all the other of Guren's squad? They've all been revived. What? Ugh. What? Does she know this? Does Coretto know this? What? And so yeah, Shinya, I'm glad we touched base on him and that he's worried about Guren. I'm glad we touched base on that and we get back to that, but Shinya like has no qualms with Aoi at all at this point. And then everybody finally, they have this battle, but then Mika and you decide, okay, we can't run. Ferid and Crowley are insanely strong. You don't want to run away, okay. If we don't run away, we can't fight them. We're all going to die. So we need to surrender ourselves to Ferid. And maybe if we're lucky, they'll take us to Cruel and we can go from there. We've done this once before. I love the idea that they go back and forth saying and deciding that it wasn't their plot. We get the guy who took you to the orphanage. He's in this, looking sketch as hell in this double spread. So it's going to come back to him, right? And I love that you keeps going back to Guren crying, but Mika, Guren was crying, and Mika's like, damn it, everybody that cries becomes your family, huh? I love it, but I love that they decide, they're like, look, it doesn't matter whose fault it was neither of our faults, but I love the idea that they're like, we're going to find a map out of here together. We're going to do this again, and Akane is with them in this. It's like, okay, we're going to do this together. Help me, okay? And that's when they decide to turn themselves in. And Ferid just shows right up and he's like, oh, hey, Ferid shows up like Ken off of Aqua. He's like, hey, he's like, come on, Barbie, let's go party. He's like, I'm a Barbie. Like, I just imagine I'm a Barbie girl playing and Ferid's like shows up. He's like, come on, Barbie, let's go party. Like, just pulls up to grab you and Mika. What? Oh my God. And he's like, you guys surrendered really before I even got here? I'm kind of amazed. He like pops the trunk. Now it's apparent that he pops the trunk. He's like, look. He's like, oh, you want to be allies with me? That's cool. He's like, so, are we going to become allies even despite what I've done to you? Like, killed your family and, like, here's Akane in a glass jar. Him pulling out Akane's head? What the hell? I'm sorry, what? I'm kind of floored by all of this. I'm kind of floored that we're like, this just series went batshit bonkers real quick, as if it wasn't already. I'm like, are you joking? He's got Akane's head in a jar. He not only has Akane's head in a jar, but all the other orphans that were killed, as well as Narumi's squad. What? Oh my God. So there's that. And then so Mika's freaking out. He's like, this is not good at all. And Yu turns into a demon, basically. And so we cut into this whole thing where we go inside Yu's mindset and all of this. And Yu is like, I love that the shadow of Yu connects to Azurimaru. And he's like, I can't beat them. And at this point, like, it's all, like, the shadow's all taken over. And Azurimaru tries to point out the contradiction here. Azurimaru is like, it's almost like Yu and the demon merging, and she calls him a Naminari. So he's like Guren. And I like that Azurimaru is like, well, demons don't have friends or family. We kill everything. And he's like, oh, well, then I guess I can't become a demon. Azurimaru's like, well, but... So at this point, Yu is like too far gone, right? Yu is going to become a demon, or something is going to happen, or is going to merge or become something different entirely. We don't know yet. But Azurimaru's like, you're about to be rescued by a vampire. So that whole mess is happening. Where that's going to go is interesting. Like, how are we doing this? And it's crazy because, yeah, Yu is saying, I don't want to turn into a demon, but I want to protect my family, but I want the power to do so. And Azurimaru's like, you're contradicting yourself. Like, eventually this is going to have to come to a head. Either you become a demon and you kill everything, or you don't, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. Or can you? We don't know with Yu's case. And he's got that part of him that's an angel, that's got some experimentation in there too. There's so much happening, and I'm like, but we're not ready to tackle that. We need to go back and find out about Guren and all them before we even get close to handling whatever this spectrum is, right? Oh my God. But, so yeah, I like that Mika stands up to Ferid, and Ferid's like, I'm just trying, I can't believe he drank Yu's blood. I can't believe it. He's like, you are cute. And he bit his neck too. We established, through the comments and stuff that it's kind of sexual for the vampires to like drink the blood, straight from the neck. It's kind of like a sexual thing. And Ferid totally violated you in this moment. And Mika's like, are you serious? Like, dude. Oh, poor Mika. I feel bad for Mika. And Mika's like, I'm never going to forgive you. And Ferid's like, I saved his life, but like, I feel so bad for Mika because Yu's at least unconscious through some of this and doesn't know what's going on. Mika has to deal with all of this. So I feel for Mika. I'm like, what is even happening? And he's like, what are you trying to do? And he's like, I just thought I'd drop by and show you how to bring her back to life. The Seraph of the End is the experiment that can do that. A group of foolish humans tinkered with it. So so we see Credo, and it looks like Shinya, and it looks like Guren and Maharu. So apparently everybody along with Guren's squad died, and Maharu helped him bring them back. So that's curious. But she became a demon in the process and became his sword. Okay, so she became a demon in the cursed gear in the process of it all. There's so many questions left unanswered. Like, I have a feeling Whiteboard Kun is going to have to come out in later volumes, especially if we're getting into the history of this. Whiteboard Kun is going to have to come out to help explain all of this, because what? I have a feeling next video, Whiteboard Kun is probably going to have to come out and help tie this all together, because I'm like, excuse me? I just can't. It's amazing. But yeah, just bring it all full circle in this. But yeah, it's just crazy, right? And so Guren's squad died, and Maharu helped them. The Seraph, I'm so curious about the next couple volumes. I'm so curious. And Guren knows, in the manga, Guren knows this demon is possessing him and taking him over. And it almost feels like he's trying to punish himself, right? For all of this, letting the demon come full circle. But that ties back, like, what is Guren's dream? Like, he just wanted his friends back, right? Oh, damn. That makes the whole line about Guren when Shinya's like, oh, you get like this when you lose people. That makes that line make so much more sense and have such more meaning and impact when Guren's like, yeah, because he lost his whole squad. Oh, and if Shinya doesn't remember that, does Goshi and Shinya them, they don't know they've been resurrected, right? So, God, that means, damn. So that whole point, when Guren like had the hand on Shinya's shoulder, when he's like having back and stuff, that gives that so much more context. And when Shinya's like, oh, you get this way when you lose people, it's like, that has so much more context. Like, oh my God. Just what? Oh, I'm floored. I'm like, y'all, I can't even. So yeah. So they've decided, so I feel like the anime talked about this and the manga did not. So I guess we're going to tie back to the point where Credo's like, I'm going to kill my dad and have this coup. And I feel like they touched upon it in the anime, but the manga, they're just now getting around to it. He's like, yeah. So curious that, I guess Ferid just ditched his car though. So, okay. So Credo's decided to stage this coup using the Seraph of the End and Guren. Okay. Sure thing. But they need Shinya and all this. Okay. So I guess they ditched the car at the local place with they ditched the car for the school bus. I'm like, Ferid, did you get somebody to come pick up the car? You're gonna come pick it up later, I guess? It's like, now we can all travel together. And Shinya was like, let's do this. So yeah, and I like that Crowley's the bus driver. I wonder if Crowley was like, a part of me was like, oh, Crowley was a mechanic in his former life, but that was 800 years ago, so they wouldn't have had cars and stuff back then. So curious that Crowley could have been a mechanic in the modern times. So they make Yoichi hold this head, okay, so that you can't see it. And so then he like talks to Narumi, Ferid does, and says, I've collected the 4 of them and put them in away jars too. And Mika's like, don't listen to him. This isn't good. I like that we see a little bit more of Kimazuki being like, look, I just want to save my sister and I don't care if I betray all of you to do it. So I feel like Mika and Kimazuki kind of have a relation here and a kind of a connector here, because Kimazuki just wants to save Mirai and Mika just wants to save you. And so that's why Mika's like, okay, I can trust you, Kimazuki, because you and I are on the same wavelength. We don't really trust each other, but we're trying to protect the people we care about. So there's that. I'm floored by this whole end of this chapter. And Ferid being like, yeah, so let's talk about the Seraph of the End. So we're going to get backstory finally. The hell? Getting backstory. Okay. And while we're getting previews of that, Guren goes to see Shinya. And this all makes so much more sense now. He's like, I'll kill you. And he's like, do it. He's like, you betrayed your friends and you killed them. And he's like, I did. He's like, I killed them all. It's the truth. And it is. Oh. He's like, I'm in control now. It's so sad. He's like, Maharu is dead and gone. He's like, what are you after? He's haunted by his friends, his precious companions, and their deaths. So 8 years ago, his friends he cared about all died. Yeah, Shinya, Goshi, Mito, Sayuri, and Shigure. He's like, that can't be right. He's like, yeah, they died, and then they were revived. So basically, using the Seraph of the End, they brought them all back to life, but the price was that God was basically like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that, and killed and destroyed most of the world with a virus. What? I'm so floored by the fact that Shinya is one of the people that were revived and Guren's haunted by all this. Like, excuse me? I'm so floored by that, and that Ferid knows about all this, and that we're going to get backstory next volume, that we're going to go back and see what all this ties into. The virus, the prophecy, everything. We're going to tie all back to that. I'm like, are you serious? I'm floored. And I just feel like this is so different than the anime ending, because the anime ending, it leads you to believe that they're going to go back to the demon army, and this is so much beyond that. Like, I'm so ready to see what the backstory is. I am so excited to see what this business is. Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, they're with Ferid and Crowley. Okay. Sure thing. Oh my god. I'm so floored, y'all. And so yeah, next volume, chapters 48 through 51 is going to be volume 13, and volume 14 is chapter 52 through 55. I feel like I want to read both volumes 13 and 14 together next video, because I feel like if we're doing backstory, it's not just going to be one volume. It's going to be like 2 volumes for the backstory, right? But man, I'm so freaking excited. We're finally going to get answers and explanations. Ferid is going to be an exposition machine. Okay. Yu is getting taken over by his demon. Mika's with them all. They all donated their blood. The Nakama, we're going to get explanations about Seraph of the End. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the world does not permit the dead to come back to life. It was a presumption that angered a petty god. And the price of their return was great. Very great. So it seems like Shinya and them have no clue they were resurrected either. So... And so is Ferid going to want to like be like, you want to start the apocalypse again? Bring your other friends back? Tamper with stuff we're not supposed to tamper with? You want to do that again, friends? Oh my gosh, y'all. This is insane. But I'm pretty excited to find out what's going to happen next. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. But I'm so curious to know your thoughts down below. What you guys thought of this volume, of these 2 volumes, 11 and 12, and getting into the story beyond the anime. Okay, alright. I'm really excited to see what y'all thought about this volume. But yeah, I think I might do 13 and 14 next time. We shall see. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and holy cow, I'll be back next time with volumes 13 and maybe 14 of Seraph of the End. Bye.